Dear students, this is our third lecture in this series of water chemistry. In the first two lectures, we have discussed mainly about hardness of water. In this third lecture, we will be discussing about treatment and purification of water. Now, water sterilization, we know, we have seen at our places also that sometimes when we drink tap water, there is a specific odor present in that water, and we say that chlorine is there. So basically, the water sterilization in domestic water or potable water for drinking purpose, this is treated with chlorine so that it may be acceptable and free from harmful bacteria present in the water. So what it does is that chlorine reacts with the water, our water, and HOCl, that is hypochlorous acid, is formed. And this hypochlorous acid is a very strong oxidizing agent, and this can kill many of the harmful bacteria present in the water. So that is why we do chlorination, so that our drinking water or potable water becomes acceptable for drinking. Now, depending upon the pH of the water, this HOCl can also dissociate into H positive and OCl negative ion, that is hypochlorite ion. Depending upon the pH and products formed, the effective residual concentration of free chlorine, which should be present in our potable water, the maximum limit for HOCl or this OCl negative, that is hypochlorite ion, whatsoever pH may be there in case of water, the maximum concentration of these can be zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 milligrams per liter. Only then, if the concentration is excess than these, then we need to treat that water further. We need to remove the excess chlorine present in the water. And this higher concentration of chlorine or products of chlorine are HOCl, hypochlorous acid, and hypochlorite ion. So they will give us a definite taste, and this taste is responsible for the excess amount of these two present in the water. But chlorination through these products, that is hypochlorous acid and hypochlorite ion, will be responsible for death of many microorganisms and harmful bacteria which are present in the water. So chlorination basically gives us a safe water for drinking to us. As I've told you that chlorine reacts with water to give us HOCl, and this HOCl dissociates into hypochlorite ion, and these two HOCl and OCl negative, they at different pH they can form different products. So for example, if we add ammonia to water, then this HOCl will react with that ammonia, and we will get monochloramines. Then these monochloramines, they will further react with two molecules of HOCl, and they will be converted into dichloramines. And these dichloramines at a different pH will further react with three molecules of HOCl, and these will be converted into trichloramine. So on addition of ammonia, we will get these types of monochloramines, dichloramines, and trichloramines. And these monochloramines and dichloramines, they are formed in the pH range of 4.5 to 8.5. So if our water is having this range of pH, in the presence of HOCl and ammonia, we will get the formation of monochloramines and dichloramines. And the monochloramines, they are most common when pH is above 8, and dichloramine, that mean will be formed between 4.5 to 8. So this is how ammonia will react with hypochlorous acid to give us monochloramines and dichloramines. And if the pH is below 4.5, then the most common amines which are present, they are trichloramines. And these trichloramines, they produce a very foul odor. And these chloramines, they are also oxidizing agents, and they act as effective disinfectant against bacteria, but they are not active against viruses. So they can, these chloramines, they can kill bacteria, but viruses, they are not affected by these chloramines. And this monochloramine, this can further react with HOCl, and nitrogen gas can be formed along with HCl and water. So this is how these chloramines, they can be destroyed by this oxidizing agent, that is hypochlorous acid also. Then dechlorination of the treated water. As I have told you that there is a limit for the concentration of chlorine which is present in our domestic water. If the concentration of chlorine is high, more than the permissible limits, then again we have to treat that water to remove the excess amount of chlorine present. And the most common technique which is used for dechlorination of the treated water, that is, dechlorination means removal of excess chlorine from water. So most common technique to remove the residual chlorine from treated water is addition of sulfur dioxide gas. So what happens is, when we add sulfur dioxide, that sulfur dioxide will react with water, and we will get H2SO3. Sulfur dioxide plus water will give us H2SO3, and this will give dissociate into H ions and HSO3 negative. And then this HSO3 negative will further lose one more proton, and this will be converted into sulfite ions. So sulfur dioxide basically dissociates to give us sulfite ions, and these sulfite ions, they react with HOCl, which is present in the form of excess chlorine. So excess chlorine means chlorine with water has been converted into HOCl. So the sulfite ion which has been dissociated from this H2SO3, they will react with HOCl, and we will get chloride ion, sulfate ion, and H ion. Similarly, the monochloramines, if they have been formed, they will also react with sulfite ions, and we will get chloride ions, sulfate ions, and ammonium ions. So this is how the excess chlorine products, they will be neutralized by sulfite ions, and dechlorination of the treated water will take place. Then advantages and disadvantages of chlorination. We know that chlorination will provide us a strong residual in the distribution system. So our water will become potable and drinkable when we add chlorine, because this will kill all the microorganisms and bacteria present in the water. Then, as you have seen, that chlorine can be easily converted into chloramines, and these also provide a strong residual, and these chloramines, they do not produce byproducts. So no further byproducts, they are formed from chloramines. Then chlorine can be easily applied to any water system. Then it is relatively inexpensive disinfectant agents also, and this is effective at very low concentrations also. So only small amount of chlorine is required for sterilization of the water, or or disinfection of the water. So these are the advantages. Now disadvantages is that when chlorine reacts with organic material, its concentration is reduced, and we will get trihalomethanes. And the trihalomethanes, which are formed at pH lower than 4.5, we have seen they are carcinogenic in nature. So that means these are very disease causing compounds. Carcinogenic means they can cause cancer in the body, and because of that, this is a disadvantage, that formation of trihalomethanes will cause cancer. So chlorination has a disadvantage in that respect, and this can be avoided, that if the pH of our system, if it remains always more than 4.5, then no trihalomethane will be formed, and then the chlorination will be an effective medium. Then chlorine provides poor control against these microorganisms, Cryptosporidium and Giardia. And these protozoas, they cause gastrointestinal problems in our due to drinking of this water. And if this gastrointestinal problem may become severe, then this can even cause death of the person. So chlorine is not effective against protozoans, which are responsible for gastrointestinal problems. So this is again one more disadvantage of chlorination. Then, as you have seen, that the excess of chlorination beyond some limit, permissible limit, is harmful. So that means we need to know that at which point the maximum requirement for chlorine is there in the given sample. So that is found out from breakpoint chlorination, or calculation of free residual chlorination. And breakpoint is very important to know, that this will tell us about the limit, that is the minimum quantity of chlorine which is required for the complete disinfection of the water. So this can be defined as the minimum quantity of chlorine required for complete disinfection of the water. So if the quantity more than this is present in the sample, that means that is the excess chlorine, or free residual chlorine. And the second definition is as the sufficient amount of chlorine required to oxidize all organic matter, reducing substances, and free ammonia present in the untreated water. So this is also the breakpoint chlorination. So this is the breakpoint chlorination curve. If you see up to this point A, this is where the chlorine will oxidize the reducing compounds present in the water. So all the reducing compounds present in the water, they will be dealt with by the chlorine up to this point. From point A to say this point, that is stage 2, the HOCl formed from chlorine will react with the free ammonia present in the untreated water, and chloramines and chloroorganic compounds they will be formed. Chloramine, monochloramine, dichloramine, trichloramine, depending upon the pH of the untreated water, they will be formed. And in the stage 3, say from point B to point C, the destruction of chloramines and chloroorganic compounds will take place. So all those chloramines and chloroorganic compounds, they will react with HOCl and nitrogen gas will be formed, HCl will be formed, and that means destruction of those chloramines will take place. So at this point C, which is called as break point, all the organic matter, reducing substances, and free ammonia present in the untreated water will be removed. So that means this is the sufficient amount of chlorine required up to this point. So that means at breakpoint C, all bad taste and odors from the untreated water, they will disappear, and most pathogenic organisms present in water, they are destroyed at this point, point C, and this point is called as break point. So beyond this point, from C onwards, any chlorine present is an excess chlorine, which is called as free residual chlorine. So knowing the value of C, that is the breakpoint chlorination, is very important, because beyond this point, any chlorine present, any HOCl present, any hypochlorite ion present will be an excess in the treated water. So that needs to be neutralized, and as I have told you, the most common reagent for neutralization of excess or residual chlorine is sulfur dioxide. So if we are having excess chlorine, we will treat it with sulfur dioxide to remove the excess or free residual chlorine. Then another method of sterilization is ozonation. This is also commonly used. Ozone is used as disinfectant since 1903, and as you know, ozone means O3, and it has a triangular structure with bond angle of 116 degree 49 minutes, and this is a very powerful oxidizing agent, only next to fluorine. That is the strength of the oxidation which it can cause. Ozone is very powerful oxidizing agent, and we know that ozone can react with unsaturated impurities, and it will form an ozonide which break into aldehydes and ketones, which can be removed. And then ozone can also decompose to oxygen and nascent oxygen, and this nascent oxygen then can be converted into oxygen, or oxygen on photolysis can change into oxygen, nascent oxygen, and this nascent oxygen can react with oxygen to generate ozone. All the reactions, they are reversible reactions. So either this can be formed from this, or these can be formed from this. So ozone is prepared either by photochemical dissociation of oxygen, as I have told you, or it can be formed by high voltage AC electrical discharge through oxygen in air. Now, there is a limit for the amount of ozone which can be present. A mixture of ozone and air that is bubbled through water to oxidize its impurities. And because ozone is a toxic molecule, it can be detected by its odor if its concentration is more than 0.01 ppm, and the total limit value for ozone is zero point 0.1 ppm in the treated water. If the value is more than that, then you have to remove the excess amount of ozone present in the water, because that is toxic in nature. Then third and the commonly used water treatment method these days is chlorine dioxide treatment. Chlorine dioxide is a yellow gas. This was first discovered in 1811, and the most common application of this oxidant is water disinfection and treatment of water. And this is being used since early 1940s. The interest in using this is because this is a very strong oxidizing agent, and its disinfectant strength is very high. Then the byproducts which are formed by using this, they are very few. If we compare the byproducts formed by chlorine disinfection, they give us more byproducts, whereas chlorine dioxide, this gave fewer disinfection byproducts in comparison to chlorine. And that is why the most widespread use of chlorine dioxide is in paper and pulp industry as bleach for paper pulp. Because what happens is that this chlorine dioxide does not react with the organic lignins present in the paper and pulp. Whereas if we use chlorine in paper and pulp industry, then we know that chlorine gives us trihalomethanes as byproducts, and these trihalomethanes, they react with organic matter, that is lignin present in the paper and pulp industry, and we get a variety of organic matter products which are not desirable in the paper and pulp formation. So that is why the formation of potentially harmful chlorinated organic compounds in paper and pulp, they give us effluent wastewater if we use chlorine on reaction with this trihalomethanes. So that is why instead of chlorine in paper and pulp industry, we use chlorine dioxide. And in paper and pulp industry, the exclusively chlorine dioxide is used. But in general, if we see the disinfectant strength of chlorine dioxide, so this is as good as chlorine or even better than chlorine as a disinfectant. Then is domestic water treatment. Now, there are two things in water treatment. One is water purification and other is water disinfection. Disinfection means what we have done uh, in the previous slides, that a purification has been done to kill or remove biological contaminants, that is bacteria and viruses from the water source. And water purification means to remove the specific contaminants from a water source. So disinfection we have done, say with chlorine, chlorine dioxide, or ozone, and but to completely purify the water, we need the water treatment for both water purification as well as water disinfection. So these contaminants which are present in the water source, they need to be removed before use by the domestic water by the people. And these contaminants they may come from water disinfection also, because as you have seen in case of chlorination, there are some byproducts of chlorination like trihalomethanes, like chloroform. If they are formed, then we are to remove those inorganic contaminant also from the water, and this will come under water purification. Now, how the domestic water treatment is done. So there are the following steps which are to be taken care to make the water drinkable. So first is untreated water is passed through screens. This untreated water is passed through screens having large number of holes of different sizes. This screen will have holes of different sizes. So what this will do, any floating material present in the untreated water, they that will be taken care by this screen. So that will be removed by this screen. And then after passing through these screens, that water undergoes pre-chlorination. Then pre-chlorination is mainly done in situation where inflow is taken from a surface water source such as a river, lake or reservoir. Then in addition we add coagulant to this along with pre-chlorination. Then after that coagulation process, the water is passed through a tank where flocculation is done. And I will explain the whole type of flocculation and coagulants in the coming slide. Just I will give you overview, and after the flocculation process we will go for sedimentation of suspended matter that will be removed over here in the form of sludge. And then sludge will be removed, and pure water for filtration through this tank will be sent for drinking purpose after chlorination. Now this is the overall picture of one water treatment plant, that from intake pipe from a lake we pass this water for preliminary treatment. That screen which I have told you, the protective bar screens, they will remove the suspended matter and all bigger waste present in that water from lake. Then from traveling water screen, this is passed on to this well, and from well this is lifted with the help of pump for uh, pre-chlorination. And after pre-chlorination, some chemical coagulants they are added to remove further impurities. And then after coagulation we do flocculation of the suspended matter. And after flocculation this is somewhat pure water is passed on to sedimentation basin. And from here in the form of sludge, impurities they are removed from sedimentation. And then this is passed through sand filtration, and then post chlorination is done, and then clear water is if needed fluorination is done. Otherwise this can be omitted if fluorination is not required. Then this is passed on to this basin pump well, and then to the storage tank, and then this is distributed to different parts of the houses. Now most important part is sedimentation with coagulation and flocculation. So here sedimentation is the process in which water is allowed to stand undisturbed in big tanks for 26 hours. So during this period what will happen, that most of the suspended particles they will settle down at the bottom of the tank due to gravity, and those will be removed as sludge. Then coagulants are also added before sedimentation. Then these coagulants, they will interact with the impurities like fine clay powders or colloidal matter, and these will be removed through coagulation. And these coagulants and other impurities, they will sediment and removed in the form of sludge. The coagulant, when added to impure water, this will form an insoluble gelatinous flocculent precipitate, which entangles very fine suspended impurities, which will form a bigger flocculant. And these bigger flocculants, they will settle down easily in the during the sedimentation period. And most commonly used coagulants, they are alum, sodium aluminate, and ferrous sulfate. These coagulants, how they work, I will explain. That alum is potassium aluminium sulfate, hydrated potassium aluminium sulfate is called as alum, and this is very commonly used as coagulant in water treatment. So what happens is this coagulant reacts with the natural alkalinity present. We know that temporary hardness is present because of calcium bicarbonate. So this alum will react with calcium bicarbonate, and this will be converted, alum will be converted into aluminium hydroxide and calcium sulfate. And this aluminium hydroxide will become a flocculant which will be precipitated out, and this will be sedimented during sedimentation. Then similarly, sodium aluminate is also used as a coagulant, but this is effective only in the pH range of 5.5 to 7. So what happens is that this sodium hydroxide formed reacts, this sodium aluminate will react with water to form sodium hydroxide, and aluminium hydroxide, again like in alum, this will be precipitated out as a flocculant. Then this sodium hydroxide formed will react with these hardness, uh, permanent hardness salts, magnesium chloride and magnesium sulfate present, and they will be converted into magnesium hydroxide, and this will also settle down as a precipitate and go along with this flocculant, and this will be sedimented in the form of sludge. Then this will remain in solution sodium chloride or sodium sulfate. Then third type of coagulant which is used is ferrous sulfate, heptahydrate, and this is mainly used above pH 8.5. So if our water is an alkaline water, its pH is 8.5, then we will use this as the coagulant. But if it is an acidic water, then we will use this sodium aluminate as the coagulant. And alum is the universal coagulant which is used to remove only temporary hardness. Then ferrous sulfate, this will react with magnesium carbonate. This is again, magnesium carbonate is responsible for temporary hardness. This coagulant on reaction with magnesium bicarbonate will give us ferrous hydroxide, and this will again precipitate out as a flocculant. Then in addition, magnesium carbonate will be formed, which will remain in solution. Then this flocculant will further react with oxygen present in water, along with water, to get converted into ferric hydroxide. And ferrous hydroxide is oxidized by this oxygen to heavy flocculant precipitate, and this heavy flocculant precipitate will also undergo sedimentation and will be removed in the form of a sludge. So this is how the domestic water is treated and made drinkable after all these steps. So that is all for this lecture. The lecture has been made from this book, Chemistry for Engineers by HArish Chopra and Anupama Parmar, published by Alpha Science UK, and in India this is available through Narosa Publications, Delhi. Thank you very much.